Writes some favorite
Getting better. Hi, everyone. Are you guys having a great week? It was sunny yesterday. It's getting warmer. We're not dying of cold. It's good. Stephanie brought back all of the sunshine, kind of yesterday at least. So keep bringing back the warm. Today we have Dana Mulqueen from Modernized Methods LLC. She's a visionary space designer, and she hosted our lunch today. So I love food, so that's good. And so she's going to come up and tell a little bit about her business, and I'm going to show you some pictures while she's doing that, and then we can get on with the meeting. So would you like to come up and have a
So thank you so much for inviting me in to share my business with you. And I'm just going to get started. We've all seen it. Mom and dad have passed away. The adult children are selling their childhood home filled with memories. It's an emotional time for them putting their family home on the market. But the buyer wants to build a new life in this home. They want to see their future, not the seller's past. Not the leftover memories of someone else's life. This is where we come in. As a team, you and I can provide the seller with a visual image he can use to show buyers the possibilities of this home and its potential to build new family memories in an updated home. We can work directly with the buyer for a basic or luxury design package rendering to help them see how their furniture will work in this new space. Or if they want to shop for new furniture, we can use our resources to find new pieces that will work with what they already own. For the realtor, we can help you close the deal by providing a visual design rendering that shows solutions for exactly what the new home buyer needs to see. Our basic package is $475, and it includes 5 elements such as carpet, lighting, furniture layout, window treatments, paint colors, or other elements. Or you can choose the luxury packages with 10 or more elements, which would be a higher price point. The win for the seller is that he does not have to remodel the home. The seller can show the buyer the possibilities without the investment of tens of thousands of dollars. The buyer can get a better rate for the home and know the property value is going to increase after doing the remodel to bring the visual design rendering into final product. And the home will come alive with new energy. Modernized Methods design renderings can show a lot. They can show updated flooring, furniture, feature walls, fireplaces, trim work, hardware, windows, doors, decor items, etc. In a modest home, the seller can show the buyer how their mom's 1970s harvest gold kitchen can be transformed into an updated modern kitchen to raise the next generation of children. I am sure you have tried to sell those upper-end homes that present like a museum or gallery with old-fashioned designs, or perhaps modern designs with gold finishes. Show luxury buyers that these old homes can be transformed into a welcoming place for raising their family while still creating an environment for entertaining friends and clients. For condo living, an outdoor balcony can be transformed from cold concrete to an inviting oasis that extends the footprint of their home. Or what about that odd closet that becomes a catch-all? Show how it can be made into a welcoming entryway. Visual design rendering plans allow you to have a plan before the contractor starts the work. That way you can bring your vision to life before you start the physical work of the remodel, before the contractor starts the final job. Our services can assist you as realtors on both sides of the sale. Ours can be a service that helps the new buyer envision the property that's for sale, and you can see it come alive to meet their needs. For the seller, modernized methods can create a visual design rendering that can be used in the marketplace to sell the property, showing updated feature design elements, attracting the buyer who has difficulty envisioning the potential of the property. Our services can be completed very quickly, usually in about 1 to 2 weeks from the final consultation. For your convenience, we also offer remote services that are personalized and efficient. Now, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
No questions? No. So the email didn't come through.
So I'll just grab this.
Okay.
This is the closet. It's the before photo here on the left-hand side. So we come in, we take the photo, and then we transform it into a visual design. And it's only for $475. It allows you to show the customer or the client the potential of this property. I'm sorry, what?
For the 475, you probably said this time. And so that is whole house, that's one room.
So it's $475 for the visual design rendering, and you get a shopping list. So the shopping list shows them where to buy the sitting area, where to buy the baskets, where to buy the lighting, where to buy the photograph, the plant, the coat hook here. And then also you get the statement sheet. And I wish I could show it to you, but I did send it over. But I can show anyone what a statement sheet looks like. But it's basically all of these elements that we added into the room in one sheet. So it'll show all the elements they need to make that room look absolutely gorgeous.
So just from 475 for one room.
Correct. And we work with everyone's budget. So if that customer has a budget of $500, $1,000, or $10,000, we'll specifically go shopping and we'll bring this room to life with what they would like to see and what they want in the room with their budget.
Do you have any examples of like a kitchen?
Yeah, I have another example. So this is that porch that I was talking about, that extensive footprint of their home or footprint. And you can see that it started as an empty porch, full concrete, and we made it warm and inviting. And now I am from Chicago, so we love our high rises. So I had to show that what can be done.
Have a list of contractors that they can call upon if they wanted. Some of these are more of a big remodel.
Yeah, we actually don't give contract advice. We're only there to. Does anyone have any other question? Yep. Yeah, this is a. Yeah, you get a photograph of us. Yeah, you are very welcome. Yeah, it's definitely futuristic. It looks like a brand new photograph. It's easy. You can transport it via email through a PDF, or you can text message it to the potential new buyer. It's really simplistic. And then it will help you close your real estate sale. Sometimes people do, they just have a problem visualizing it. So when you bring it to life for them so they can see it, they're like, wow, this is so beautiful. Oh my God, I didn't know that my property had this much potential. You know? And you correct, yeah. You can do contemporary, French country, traditional, modern, mid-century modern. So we definitely will work with their style and their budget.
Yeah, because think of how many times buyers are like, I just can't see it. And so this would be a nice complement to that. Great. Well,
You said it's like a 2-week lead time, so if you had like a museum house coming on the market, that you want us to get in contact with you right away, so that you have it sooner for the listing. So this is not like a 2-day turnaround.
Yes, correct. So we would love the photographs if you have them. You can either email us or text us, or we could go up to the property for you. And then we come up with the concept approval. So we have to look over the concept approval, and then after that final stage, we send it on to our design rendering team. So one of my large design team members will assist you, and then you'll get that result in 3 days, 4 days, up to 2 weeks. Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you so much.
So much.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. The
Oh.
email did not come through.
You got to be ready.
All right. So let's get back to business. We have a new operations manager. She still is here on Wednesdays though. So now Jessica's date to run the front desk is Wednesday, and she joined Brad Parents' team. So congrats, Jess. All right. Slide, but we do have helpers. Oh wait, we do have a slide. Brad Parent. So we'll give that to Jessica. Jackie. And also Alexina Marca. For Brad and Jackie if they were. So, okay, so now we have a compliance update. We're jam-packed with stuff today, so we're just gonna truck it along. And let me know when you want me to play that video.
Go for it right away. So
Okay.
we've got a new addendum that the WRA, GMAR, they drafted a new addendum. So if you have written, like last spring, a lot of us were writing like appraisal gap coverage. If you're having a home inspection, but the buyer's not going to ask for any work to be done for the first $2,000. And like we've all seen some different kinds of escalation clauses out there. So they've worked together to put together a new addendum that standardizes and simplifies that language so that it's, you know, that way if you get an offer from agent X, you know that like we're all knowing the same information. So there actually is a video from Corey Lamont explaining this. So I think it was like 4 minutes start time. Yep. So I'll pass this out to Chris.
Changes. So again, nothing shocking new other than the very beginning part of for you. And so that was the kind of gotcha. So that's the reason that was taken out. But the committee felt very strongly that it was time for the Greater Milwaukee Association to have a new addendum. So in addition to your addendum A, you may also be choosing to include addendum AC, which is additional we went through a lot of different iterations of this form and what it was going to look like, whether it was going to be one form or two forms. At the end of the day, they chose it to be one form. In this AC, you're going to see an inspection gap, an appraisal gap, and installation costs. And it's a total of 2 pages. So of course, this is not something that you may use in every transaction. This may be something that you use in a transaction, but you may only check certain portions of it. So again, this is all based on your unique circumstances in your transaction. But the ultimate goal was to make sure, from the committee's perspective, that your marketplace had consistent language that everybody was adopting and then using, and so that we didn't have this confusion as to what does your inspection gap language look like, what does your appraisal gap language look like, how do we interpret the escalation clause in each? And so again, that's the main reason that you now have this addendum AC that you can utilize in your transaction. So again, trying to stay with this theme to let you see what this form kind of looks like broken down into pieces. You can see that it also has a February 1st, 2023 use date. Again, you can see that it has references to the property, the offer date, the different mailing address, the inclusion of optional provisions language. So it is substantially the same, other than the title, as your addendum A. So nothing new shocking there. Now, if we talked about the fact that there's going to be what we're referring to as an inspection gap, it's kind of a loose phrase that we all a version of something like that, where essentially what you're attempting to do is basically say if certain events occur and there's an inspection that the buyer is not going to give a notice of defects unless these facts exist, and one of them could be that it has to exceed a certain amount of money in order for the buyer to be able to say it exceeded, $10,000. So now I'm going to talk to you about it. So if you choose to check this box and do so on line 8, it basically says buyer agrees not to submit any notice of defects or amendments to repairs, replacements, or price reduction under the inspection contingency in the offer. So you'll have an inspection contingency in your offer to check this box, unless the cumulative estimated cost to replace or repair the defects exceeds a certain amount of money, and those have to be identified in the inspection itself. And that is if the seller has the right to cure those defects. So a lot of things have to happen. If the buyer delivers a notice of defect, the seller's election to cure applies only to the balance of the items for which those cumulative costs replace exceed the amount stated on line 10. So again, it's this threshold, this gap that basically says I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to object to anything unless that cumulative number exceeds the information on line 10, the number on line 10. And so how do we get those estimated costs for repair replacements? Those are going to be obtained from an independent qualified professional or contractor selected by the buyer. Seller agrees to provide buyer access to the property, and those buyers qualified professionals or contractors to obtain those estimates. So we have that authority, and then we also know who's going to select them. And then the buyer shall pay any costs associated with obtaining those estimates. So again, just trying to make sure everybody's clear there. The parties may together agree on the costs of the repair to replace the defects for the purpose of this provision. And the estimates obtained or agreed upon are utilized only for execution of this provision and do not affect the seller's right to cure. And that's reflected in the seller's right to cure and inspection tendency, unless specifically agreed in writing. Then it goes on to say that the buyer, when they're selecting this addendum AC, they can also choose to include a couple of other items. On line 20, this may be the selection where the seller may also obtain the estimates by independent qualified professionals or contractors and delivered to the buyer by the deadline for the inspection. If delivered before the notice of defects is delivered to seller by buyer based upon the estimates obtained by buyer. If the seller delivers timely, such estimates and estimates differ from the buyer's estimates for the same item or costs, the parties agree that they will average different estimates. This is basically saying that the seller can have the opportunity to say, yep, I'd like to go out and see if I'm going to get those same numbers, and then they are going to average those out. And it's something you can choose to check or not. On line 25, either party may extend the original deadline for the inspection dependency by blank number of days, 5 if left blank, to allow for follow-up inspections and obtaining estimates. Either party may do this by delivering the written notice of extension if delivered to the other party prior to expiration of the original deadline for the inspection dependency. So if they choose to check this, this is kind of a one and done. You get one opportunity to extend that original deadline to the inspection contingency. So again, that's just something where the parties might choose to execute this because they want to have that opportunity to extend. May not do so, but it's an opportunity for them. I mentioned to you that your addendum AC also includes an appraisal gap. So again, these languages are kind of in a conversion or a melding, if you will, of all the different languages that we've seen, including some of the various own provisions. So the appraisal gap is essentially trying to address that situation where there is a difference between the purchase price and the appraisal. So the buyer represents buyer has consulted the buyer's lender before including this provision, which of course is something just to remind the buyer of. And then if the offer includes an appraisal contingency and the appraised value is less than the purchase price, the buyer agrees to cover the difference up to X amount. And that's what we're referring to as the appraisal gap. Buyer hereby represents the buyer has sufficient funds to cover the gap and the amount financed in the finance commitment contingency in the offer. And it's just to reiterate that so the buyer doesn't somehow say, well, I only has to have the money to cover that. Buyer is hereby prohibited from sending a notice objecting to the appraised value unless the appraised value is lower than the purchase price minus the appraisal gap. So making sure that they understand that they're still obligated to purchase property under certain circumstances. And if the seller has the right to cure under the appraisal contingency, the seller may satisfy the contingency by delivering written notice to the buyer adjusting the purchase price to the value shown on the appraisal report plus the appraisal gap. And then all of the other terms of the appraisal contingency remain the same. Again, I mean, I guess the most.
Is that okay if I stop it there? That was the end. Are you guys having flashbacks of pre-licensing?
Yes. There's
Oh, there's one more section. Do you want to just explain it?
yes, the escalation clause is the last section. And so it's actually not that different from the escalation clause that our office was already using. You can see that there's some things in here though that are like specified that may not have been specified in some of the other escalation clauses that you may have received. So you've got you've got the date on here still that you put on line 37. Line 40 would have your the amount that you'd be willing to go over the highest offer up to the purchase price of on line 44. And then you've got that timeline then that how long will it be for that price to be changed with an amendment after the receipt of said offers. And then on the back is how the buyer will be delivering or how the seller will be delivering the other offers to the buyer. So just a reminder that as a licensed agent, you do not send an offer to another licensed, you're not sending those offers. The seller themselves has to send the offer to the buyer so that we can start the process of changing. Any questions about this form? Yes.
In the appraisal gap?
Yep.
It says that the buyer has enough to cover the gap and amount financed. So are we asking for proof of that?
It's always a good idea.
And what would be acceptable for the bank account?
Some type of
Letter
proof of
from
funds.
a
Mhm.
lender?
Yep.
Two parts. For compliance purposes, this is only if we have one.
Yes.
check that we filled out.
Yep, so you don't need to include this if you don't have a inspection gap, if you don't have an appraisal gap, if you don't have an escalation clause, then you don't use this.
And then when we're adding it, should I put as an addendum on the offer or should I put more addendum A?
I think either. Yeah.
As long as you're referencing GMAR addendum A in the offer, then you can put it on addendum A.
Should
That-
we-
in that little-
Yes.
That's why I asked, it's like-
It's not in place, it's not in place of the addendum A. This is an extra. Instead of using your own language, this is consistent, yes.
Lines 42 and 43 are different from the one we have been using. But like this gives you the ability to kind of ping pong off of other.
Yep,
um,
especially if you have multiple escalation
Yeah.
clauses.
Yep.
So the question line 42 and 43 says the purchase price of this offer may be increased once or more than once based on one or more other offers. So are you just picking the highest and you're increasing it, or are you going to, is it that someone else has an escalation clause? And then you're setting both so that the escalation clause, or the seller that would then send both to show the escalation clause is going into effect. Get ready for spring.
So you guys all have that compliance hotline number saved?
And we can send out this video in the recap form if
Yeah,
that's the recap email. So if you want to watch it a couple times, Corey explains it really well. And she does explain the new addendum A. That was much less info than this one. So this one, since it's in this form.
How would we know how many times to use?
Well,
I think that's just a check.
yeah, it's an X box. so-
Right.
Until you reach the max.
Should we err on the side of caution and say more than once? Just in
That's a good
case
question.
there are
Some,
other
it'll be,
offers that come in?
I think if you're wanting to make it a strong offer, yes.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to see. I know when seller financing came out, the first time I wrote an offer with that new part of the addendum A, I was like, well, maybe a seller would want that. And then being on the seller side, they were confused and it was like, no, don't add that in because then they're just confused. Are they asking me to personally find? So some of this may be how agents are explaining it. Some of it may turn out to like, how does the seller really feel about it? If I was a seller, I'd want to increase it more than once.
As a seller, could you just bypass this though with just an amendment, like not even referencing
You could,
the accelerator?
yes,
and
or
just say,
counter,
hey,
yep.
we're really
Yes.
over this, we're countering that, yeah, countering
Yes.
that.
If you want it to be clean, if you've got 10 offers that all are excited to use this new form, maybe you want to just counter that for cleanliness.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
good questions. And you guys all have the compliance hotline saved in your phones.
Yes.
So, okay, awesome. Thanks, guys.
Sorry, I busted through that video.
No, you're okay.
Because I watched it yesterday. It was super interesting yesterday, and then today I was like, ugh.
You know what, I'll just chime in on one thing as it relates to this. I think this is where your associations, GMAR and WRA, have gone to work to help create clarity to something that had a million different ways to say it. And I really commend Mike Rizika and Corey Lamont of helping consolidate some of this, because I'll tell you, we dealt with a situation before in the KW universe where a Shore West agent misunderstood the escalation clause because they had never seen an escalation clause. And then their seller, reading through it, corrected the agent after they accepted a different offer, and it turned into a litigious litigation situation. Because of the language and unfamiliarity, so it helps to have consistency to a lot of and I would encourage you to take a look at how you utilize this, because if you think about it like this, you need to use appraisal, inspection, or escalation in a way for you to win a competitive situation. If you don't need any of those three things, you don't need to worry about it. Make sense? But I think, Dawn, I commend you for bringing this up. It's a great resource, and I also very much appreciate the association for clarify it across all brokers. It should make your job easier.
Mhm.
And I should mention too, Jeremy was on that panel that helped create this.
Yeah.
Just a lot of work.
Cool. So I just wanted to talk about the Think Like a CEO podcast really quickly. Last week, if you listened to it, it was all about cutting expenses, and don't cut business expenses because those are important. You should cut personal expenses because you can live without the extra haircut a year. I mean, we all did for 3 years, right? So, but we're not taking that advice because we are slashing cubicle prices from $50 a month to $25 a month. So if you do want a cubicle and you're interested in keeping stuff here, we are only charging $25 a month. Tanika's grandfathered into $50 a month already. So, no, I'm just kidding. She got 25 too. So, but we'd love to see you guys more in the office. So we wanted to make it more affordable because I know expenses and inflation are kind of creeping up on all of us. So please feel free to reach out to Michelle if you do want a cubicle. So now we have tech and marketing updates. So is Lindsay on?
I am on, Kelly. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. So this week, I really just wanted to continue on with our focus of lead generation in the month of February. And I wanted to showcase what I think is one of the best tools that every Keller Williams agent has at their disposal, which is the KW Consumer Search app. So if you think about it, no matter what the case is, whether someone is actively looking to buy a home or not, every consumer has some sort of real estate search app on their phone. So this is an awesome opportunity for you to engage with your clients and potential clients when you're talking about real estate. And integrating the KW Search app is a great way to lead generate and start conversations with people. So the KW Consumer app has a ton of different features. The first thing and probably the best thing about this app is that you can easily share the app from your phone. So you can text, you can email it, you can share it on social media. You have a unique app link that's specific to you as the agent. So once a consumer creates an account using the link that you send out, whether it's a text or an email, whatever the case is, their app now will be automatically branded to you as the agent. So that is what we're talking about when we say brand the app. So what this does is it creates a lead or a contact within your database with their contact information with which they signed up with. And now you have the ability to track their engagement. So what properties are they looking at? What saved searches are they creating? What collections? What neighborhoods are they viewing? So it really gives you an opportunity to really see exactly what they're looking for. We all have those cases where maybe you have a buyer consult and they say that they're looking in the Wauwatosa Brookfield area, and then all of a sudden they're looking out in Lake Country. You can track that activity. You can see exactly what they're looking for to kind of have some more conversations with that client. And so the other thing too is it's a full IDX search. So it's not just our market, it's not just Wisconsin, it's across the country, it's also globally. So you can search for a home anywhere across the country, which is really great. So it's not market specific. You can share this with your out of town buyers. If you're have a big referral network, it doesn't matter. Everyone can use the Keller Williams search app. So I think I have one more slide, Kelly. So just showcasing a couple other features here. You can create saved searches for the consumers that are using your app. And so again, it's just a really great way to get people engaged and communicate out with them. So with these saved searches, you can set up automated email communication. You can set the frequency of those emails as well. You can, the client can create different collections of different areas or different types of homes. And the other thing that's part of this app and your website as well, actually, is the buyer and seller guides. So you as the agent can actually customize these guides within Command and really get specific in terms of how do you run your business. The guides are both completely created for you, but you do have the option to customize, which is really nice. And it basically walks your clients through the process of either buying or selling. And you can then track their progress. They can actually click, maybe we schedule the inspection, or it kind of just walks them through the process, and the consumer can go through and check off, okay, we completed this step, we completed this step. So really great tools. I highly encourage everyone to download this app, use it as a consumer. That's the best way that you're going to learn about it. And then find a couple different things that you love about it to then share with your clients. So this week on Zoom, we are talking all about the app. If you're interested in learning more about this and how you can utilize this to lead generate and gain more business, join us on Zoom this Thursday at 11 o'clock. Kathleen will be directing that training this week. And so a lot of different things that we'll be going over, specifically how to share the app, how to create safe searches, all of that. So that'll be on Zoom this Thursday at 11.
Well, do you
That's all
guys
I
have
have.
any questions for Lindsay? Yeah, Catherine.
Do they have a scheduled fix for Android to share yet?
I have not heard of any fix for that yet. Currently, if you have an Android, the share the app button is not clickable. But as soon as we get an update, I will let you guys know. I know that's important, so I'm sure they're actively working on that. That one's high priority for sure.
Anything else? Nope. Okay, thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you.
110. Okay. We're having issues with our Zoom, which is driving me crazy. So now we have a message from Charlie Stanley.
All right, guys, so in the spirit of Black History Month and our mission, vision, values, beliefs, and perspectives, one of the things that we focus on as an organization, both nationally and locally here, is equity and opportunities for all. And what I want to do today is challenge your thoughts and thinking, okay? And if I challenge your thoughts and thinking, my idea to it is if I get you to think, it'll get you to act differently or create some sort of act, right? And so challenge your thoughts, challenge your actions. Here's a few things I want you to consider, okay? Would you agree everyone deserves to own a home or to live somewhere?
Yes.
Cool, we're on the same page, right? Owning a home is an incredible access to resources and helps people realize their potential, helps them access generational wealth, helps access to schools people desire, access to good paying jobs that people desire. And consider this, in 2020, just a couple of years ago, very recently, Morgan Stanley did a study. And it talked all around the study was how homeownership gaps take a massive toll on the economy, okay? And basically talked about looking into the gaps. It says, you know, the gaps prevent 5 million qualified buyers from owning homes. It costs our economy about $800,000 or 800,000 jobs a year to allow people to work close to where it is they desire to work. It prevented an additional $400 billion in tax revenue realized. Okay. And one of the things that I, in my role, take very seriously in terms of how we lead our group or make people think, it's thinking about the way in which this impacts us here locally. Okay. And here's something to consider, just looking at one statistic of homeownership and whites versus blacks. In the United States, 75% of homeownership, 44% for blacks, okay? In Wisconsin, it's worse. In Milwaukee, it's probably even, I think it's closer to 22%, okay? If you look at the gap between the two. And if you look at some of the systemic ways in which that our local region has been challenged, right? And we think about what role do we play in that, and how do we make an effort to improve our communities, because we have an obligation to improve our communities and give back to those who help give back to us, is how do we leverage and utilize our profession to make the world a better place? Okay. And I use, this is one statistic of one example, right? But it's probably the most extreme within our community in ways in which that we can focus on. And I consider you this, the reason why I brought this up today, more so to use it as a way to get you to slow down to think, was we have to think about the way in which that we approach our lives and our businesses so that we can make an impact on our communities. Okay, and it's super easy to stay on the hamster wheel and be complacent in what we do and how we serve folks. And I challenge you with a few thoughts. Okay, the population is becoming more diverse, not less. It's been that way for 30, 40 years. Okay, I would challenge you this: if you aren't embracing it, you will become obsolete. If you aren't embracing it in terms of the way in which and how you communicate across a wide variety of groups of different people, you will become obsolete, because the world is becoming more diverse, not less, right? And don't allow exclusivity to limit your market penetration, right? And think about the way in which that you operate your business, the way in which that you show up, the way in which you market yourself, the way in which that you have dialogues with folks. And we have to be consistent in our approach in terms of how we approach our policies, our procedures, our systems, and our models, right? Because inconsistencies lead to selective enforcement. I'll use another example. Anyone know the number one thing that where people or agents get caught? Caught's probably not the right one. Dinged in terms of fair housing? Nope.
Steering.
Nope.
Schools.
Nope. Nope. Well, related to that, yes. The number one way in which agents get in trouble because they don't think about it or deal with it probably on a very regular basis is the way in which they approach people with disabilities. Right? And it may not be something that you are familiar with or deal with or see on a regular basis, but then all of a sudden what happens when you have a client who may be deaf? Or what happens when you have a client who may be in a wheelchair and doesn't have accessibility to ADA to go on a showing? Like, we have to think about these things to be proactive to it. And again, my job is to get you to think, right? Like, that's the way I view my role within leadership, is to get you to think, and you can't get in your own way, right? Because steering is not hard to do. It's really not hard to do. Okay. Not steering is a far more intentional muscle than you have. Okay. It's a far more intentional muscle. So when you hold yourself, and I believe this, everyone intends to hold themselves to the highest ethical and moral standards. Upholding fair housing is a core aspect to this, and is also incredibly intentional and purposeful in the way you approach it. Okay. And I think that we have an obligation within what it is that we do from a professional standpoint, and the ways in which that we make an impact to that. Right. Because again, everyone wants to change the world. And there's a funny phrase I use all the time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so how can we make an impact within our southeastern Wisconsin communities? By serving one client at a time, by helping people across a wide variety, demographics, geographics, sex, race, religion, whatever it may be. And I want to give you 2 examples of the way in which this shows up in our communities. And then I have 2 action items in which you can take and think about your role and how you make our communities a better place. I don't know if you guys know this, but every Monday, Keller Williams International sends out a diversity, equity, and inclusion weekly email. And yesterday, I was on a call with Mark King, who's the president of Keller Williams International. And he made an incredibly bold statement that stopped me in my tracks. And this was the impetus behind, or I kind of thought of, all right, what am I going to stump on today on team meeting? He said this. He said, Keller Williams will become, he didn't say we desire, he didn't say we wish to, he said we will become the most inclusive company in the world, agnostic of industry. Okay. He said, we will become the most inclusive company, agnostic of industry. And it made me think, okay, what role do we play in that locally so that we can support that mission? Right? And how do we make an impact? And how do we, as a leadership team, provide opportunities for people to make an impact within their local communities? Because if we make an impact across 100-ish agents in Southwest, if we make the impact in a couple hundred agents in the other market centers, and all of a sudden we have one unified force working towards becoming the most inclusive company, agnostic of industry in southeastern Wisconsin, it's what helps AW, which I believe is the absolute right thing and right strategy, become the most inclusive company internationally, right? And I want to give a shout out to someone in this room. Yesterday, or on Monday's email, they specifically highlighted Angelique's efforts and what she is doing with NAHREP, along with her installation on Thursday evening as the next chapter president. And I want to give a shout out to Angelique. And I know we've talked about it, but I really wanted to root the group in terms of why this is so important and the efforts that she's making within our community to make our community a better place. And this is a small example of someone making an effort, right, of giving of their time, talent, energy, and resources to make the world a better place for a specific mission, cause, purpose, right? And a lot of us are very, very successful. And a lot of us have found ways in which that we can take our talents and utilize them for great causes or to make an impact on others, right? Angelique's a perfect example of this.
Can I add
Yeah,
something?
totally.
So when you were sharing the statistics about the gaps in home ownership, NAHREP puts out a report every year called the State of Hispanic Home Ownership Report. I have the report from last year. There's a new one coming out next month in DC. But last year's figures predict that by the year 2040, 70% of homeowners will be Latino. So this is the time to really figure out how we can service that community. Connect with Latino business owners, inspectors, lenders, learn about what's going on in the community, what's important to homeowners, and even the young ones. Get out and get it with the young ones. My kids, I already encourage them to buy a house. They're part of that demographic, and it's really important that we all learn how to work together to support the Latino community. And I look forward to bringing information to you guys as well. Anything that I learned, anything that I can share, anyone that I can bring in to speak, I will definitely share those opportunities.
Cool. Congrats.
Thank you.
And I'm going to highlight another local example. Okay. And I'd be remiss.
Yes.
Please join us on Thursday evening if you'd like to.
We're gonna have great food. We're gonna have food con Tres Hermanos. DJ Aztec will be in the house. We will also have Alderman Jose Perez doing the installation, and we will have Monique Simmons from the Women's Council.
Good. So if you'd like to join me in the installation, I'd welcome you to. And if I'll tell you this, if money's an issue, text me. I'll find a way to cover your costs to get in. Make sense? Cool. Another thing I just want to highlight, and this is just different ways in which people in our community can make a difference. I was having a conversation with Shawnee. Shawnee, if you haven't met, is a phenomenal agent based in the North Shore, and she's been leading these mastermind groups. This was Friday evening at 5:30, and Shawnee and I have been really focused on how do we help. Not only do we have a homeownership gap, but I think part of the reason why we also have a gap in terms of population representatives across the agent pool is because of the homeownership. Different groups of folks don't see homeownership as a way to build generational wealth. They'll never see real estate, being a real estate sales associate, as a way for them to build generational wealth and serve the purpose. And I just wanted to showcase a way in which Shawnee is leading a mastermind group every single month. She does it in the North Shore, but is another small way in which that she is viewing an opportunity to leverage her time and talent to give back to those to help them see the opportunity for becoming a sales associate. Ownership gap. And listen, that's a big gap. And I don't expect that we're going to change the world overnight. But if we can help folks become successful real estate associates through their increasing their level of productivity, and if it increases their level of productivity to help people understand the opportunities that become of owning real estate, it helps us make an impact one family, one purpose, group of folks at a time. And so I just use those are two small examples of ways in which people are making our world a better place, or making our region a better place in the way in which they serve. So now here's my 2 action items for you. Okay. 1, if you haven't done this, I highly encourage you to take Fairhaven. It's fairhaven.realtor. Okay. It'll take you about 45 minutes. I'll tell you, I've taken it. It made me think totally differently in my way in which I approach certain dialogues or conversations. And the way in which I thought I wasn't steering, because I was overthinking the intentionality of the way in which I operated, made me realize that I was subconsciously steering, right? And I would tell you, take the time, invest your time in participating in this community, because there's a great learnings that can be had by challenging the way in which you think. The second, and this is a tad bit short notice, but I'm going to continue to plug them throughout the year to offer you guys more opportunities, is I'm very involved in an organization here in town called Axe Housing. Okay, Axe Housing mainly focuses on inner city Milwaukee and helping people provide opportunities for home ownership. And what they do is they take lower income people who are challenged, maybe sometimes potentially credit challenged, and helping them find access to home ownership. And then what they do is they provide them grants, because a lot of times the homes they can afford are oftentimes in disrepair. And they help provide them grants so that they can fix them up to make them habitable and make them their own. ACTS is an incredible organization. I got involved with them last fall. I'm advising them on their brokerage operations, because they run a brokerage, and how do you run a brokerage successfully? And what does it look like from an operational standpoint? So I'm advising them. And then they also have an acquisition fund with $200 million. And their goal is to be the tip of the spear in terms of helping bridge that homeownership gap. And the acquisition fund's goal is to compete directly with institutional outside investors who are coming into Milwaukee and buying 50 to 80 properties at a time, and then making people permanent renters. And so they have a fund with $200 million that we're working towards creating our strategy. And we just closed our first home January 7th, where they will be buying the homes and they will become the institutional investor in our community. And then they will place families within these homes that basically become rent to own. And that over time that we transition the ownership from the organization. And so if you're interested in this dialogue or this conversation, there's an affordable homeownership town hall tomorrow. Again, I totally apologize for the short notice on this. It's at Marquette University from noon to 1:30 at their that beautiful glass building law school right in the Marquette interchange. So right after this meeting, if you're interested, I'll send you an RSVP link. And I'm going to continue, if you don't mind, continue to plug Axe Housing, NowRep, and some of these other things as a way in which that we can leverage our scale to make an impact on our communities. Yes.
Can't make it to that. How do we get in the know about what?
Axe Housing.
Yeah.
I'll get you involved. Yes, I'll find ways to. And I'm going to incorporate that more into ways in which that we can leverage our professional ways. A little sidebar story. Axe right now, on top of their acquisition fund and some of the other things they do, they also do run a brokerage. It's about 8 associates. As I mentioned, I'm helping them advise them on the brokerage side. We also have agents that have direct one-on-one mentoring relationships with helping their agents like levels or raise their level of professional standards and productivity. And the goal of it is to serve Axe. It's not like a recruiting thing where we don't want to recruit them in, we want to help Axe. Especially. If you're interested in it, feel free to ping me. But yeah, cool. Awesome. So having said all that, that was kind of my message for today. I wanted to do something that wasn't data related and wasn't data driven, because I know I hit you guys with numbers all the time, but I wanted to get you guys to stop and think about how we use our professional abilities to make the world a better place in Southeastern Wisconsin. A lot of avenues in which people in our community and squad, as we know it, are already doing, like Angelique and Shawnee. And there's ways in which we can make our community a better place. Cool. Awesome. Wrapping it up, I'll send you January's insights. But here's what I know. In a tough market, it becomes a skills-based market. We've talked about leaning into training and education, so I'm going to highlight a few things. One, tomorrow, as fast as you make money, I also know money goes out the back door just as fast. And if you want to know the tips and tricks around running a business that's based on profit and what you do with that profit and how you allocate that profit so that it can do good for others or that you can make more money or however that may be, Jay's leading a discussion around Profit First tomorrow in the North Shore office from 10 to 11. And then if you'd like to join me at the Axe Housing event, you can do so from noon to 1. But how this came about is Jay's and Gary Keller's top mastermind. And Gary has been pushing this concept of Profit First. And so Jay is taking the principles he has been implementing for the last 3 years and teaching them back to the associates. So that's tomorrow in the North Shore from 10 to 11.
Also, this week, Thursday at 2:00, here's the tips for agents around tax time, how to save money with your taxes and not overpay Uncle Sam. Tim and Diane are absolutely phenomenal CPAs, have absolutely great recommendations, so feel free to jump into that. And then we talked about the lead generation. And then lastly, Ignite is wrapping up this week for those that are in Ignite, or if you're interested in jumping into the last 2 sessions, feel free. It's happening where? Here. Allison Maris is getting us to the close, and then Maureen is doing the blast off to plan your future on Friday. Cool. Beautiful. Last thing, next week, Monday and Tuesday, we're hosting the Cybercrimes and Real Estate with Focus Title in Nightberry. It will be held here on Monday at 11 and live in person along in Zoom. And then we're doing it again in Lake Country on Tuesday morning after team meeting on Lake Country. Good.
Mhm.
Lynn, is Lynn here? Lynn, anything you know about the Focus Title app?
Downloaded it finally. We're gonna get some nice training on it. Anybody has questions in the meantime, let me know. That'll be up here. We'll feed it through up here, but we'll also do
Beautiful.
and record it for those that don't.
Beautiful. With that, last thing, save the date, February 23rd, 1 to 3. Here's the thing, we changed it up a little bit because we heard you. Couldn't do it too early in the morning because of kids drop offs, and we couldn't do it too late in the afternoon because of kids pickup. So we said, why not do it right in the middle of the day? Because we want to celebrate people and their accomplishments. Here's the other thing I want you to hear directly from me. Celebrating people is celebrating where they are. Okay? It does not mean making this big hoopla of, you know, number one, or you did this many units, or you did this much production. For some people, the recognition and celebration is they hit 5 million. 5 million was their goal. And the income they derived from the 5 million they did helped kids get to college, help pay for daycare, help them buy a new car, whatever it is that it may be. And that's the purpose of celebrating folks. And so I hope that you would consider joining us, because I know anything about this team, they know how to celebrate people in a really fun way. So February 23rd.
You can still lead Jen in the morning.
Cool. With that, anything else?
I have nothing.
I'm done.
You guys have any coming soon? No, not yet?
Yeah.
You?
I have one. Facility status, it's in Milwaukee, 3 bed, 2.5 bath, any more master. Sorry, it's I think like 3,000 square feet. Lots of 5 fields. It's not a ranch. That's what I'm saying for.
Anything else?
We have.
Okay. Can you do it in the Tony and Giangreco voice? Please.
No, I could not actually. Okay, so we have one coming up, 1255 West Boulevard in Racine. Okay, so that is a single family Cape Cod, 3 bedroom, 1 bath, 1,200 square feet. We have 104 at 38 West Sylvia in Milwaukee. That's 4 bedroom, 2.5 bath, 1,324 square feet. Sorry, I didn't give you guys the price. That one's going for $269,900. The one in Racine, $139,900. We have one coming up, 3975 South 84th Street, Unit 4 in Milwaukee. That's going to be going for $119,900. It's a condo, 1 story, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, 680 square feet. We have 1935 North 22nd Street, Colonial, 4 bedroom, 2.5 bath, a little over 2,300 square feet. That's going for $224,900. We also have 5849 M Stand Hills Road, Mount Pleasant, 359.9, single family, 1-story, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,700 square feet. And the last one, 3371 South 66 in Milwaukee, single family, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, a little over 1,100 square feet.
Well, what's the price on that last one?
That one is 280.
280. All right. Well, that concludes your team meeting for today. Thanks for showing up. Woo.
I didn't know that was happening.
Oh, sorry.